You're listening to the IMT Show with Mike Sims. Now here is your host.
One of the things I wanted to address is I've been in the technology field for ages and seems forever. My first job was in the summer 8th grade. I worked for a little company called TiSoft, which was based on TI computers. They developed software for them and resold TI 990s and 771s, which are basically these $10,000 huge computers with 8-inch floppy drives. I'm sure I have one around here somewhere, but it's a fascinating summer job. It allowed me to learn a lot of things, kind of put my feet on the path to learning things. I've talked about, how I met one of the executives later and lost a job opportunity because of not having a college degree. But it's been interesting watching this this technological world. It's interesting watching this technological world come into play and how it's grown and what happened. I think I got to live through the not the most technically advanced areas, but the beginnings and the emergences of certain things that were just were fascinating. When I was in this 8th grade job, there were very few home computer options. There was basically this little TI 990/4A, which obviously an engineer named that device. Not very catchy, but it was a little home computer with basic programming and game cartridges. Mostly, it was more of a game console, but you could program in it, and it was cool. You could do color graphics and colorize each little pixel. Not very high graphics. Then a few years later, my brother had bought an Apple IIe and was asking me to look at it and see how it could fit their business. And again, it was more basic programming and pre-made stuff. It wasn't really heavily useful for business. And it was when I moved to the Houston area and got into New Caney High School, they had budgeted to buy computers and start having computer classes. And nobody really knew that much about computers. The staff, the teachers, they didn't really have a consultant or anybody. Apple was pushing computers heavily, almost even giving them away free to get them in classrooms so that people would use them and get used to them, and then of course buy them later. They asked me, because I had actually worked with computers and knew quite a bit about them at that time, what I thought they should buy, IBM or Apple. And I said, Apple has got a lot of educational stuff. They're a lot probably easier to use, but the world's IBM. So if you get Apples, nobody's going to understand that well when they get into the workforce out there, because it's all going to be IBM compatibles. And they took my advice and bought Apples. And they sat there and hardly anybody used them and did anything with them, which I kind of halfway expected that was going to happen anyway. But as the technology grew and PC started coming about, and people started making clone IBM compatibles, which were called PC compatibles. And basically, what it was is that the Apples ran on a Motorola chip, a RISC-based Motorola chip, 68,000 series chip, and IBM wanted to make a more scaled down processor that could run a simpler instruction code, so it could be cheaper and compete with what's out there. So they made what is called an 80 series processor. And that's when they got involved with Bill Gates, and he convinced them to let him just license this software, which some college friend of his had written, utilities, and called it DOS, Disk Operating System. And that made Microsoft. And Microsoft, of course, developed a competitive version of what of the Xerox GUI interface that Apple had acquired from Xerox for their Apple computers. And Microsoft had developed his own called Windows. And of course, Apple had sued Microsoft, and then it was ruled that nobody can have a monopoly on GUI interfaces. So that's what made Microsoft. They became dominative, and Apple became a very small percentage of the business world in general. But so I ventured myself more into computers, into the PC world. My same brother had bought a PC compatible because clones were everywhere. You could buy them out of the newspaper for next to nothing. And of course, they would provide you with all kinds of software and whatever. But it was a very free type market, whether it was meant to be free or not. It was it happened quite a bit. Getting software, it was very easy to copy. So the interesting aspect was when he got his computer, he says, okay, Mike, learn it. So I'm 16 years old, and I sat down and I started messing around with the utilities on it, and I really wasn't that familiar with it, and just started running stuff to see what they do. And I ran this utility called F. And then after that, nothing worked. So I called up the guy that he bought the computer from, told him I ran this utility called F. And the guy continued to berate me for about 5 minutes about how stupid I was for running F, because that formatted the entire hard drive. And asked me if I was at least smart enough to make a backup of everything, and as instructed when they first got the computer. And I said, yes, I did. So he walked me through restoring everything back, and everything was back to normal. Of course, I never told my brother that wiped out his stuff, but it all got back there. So no harm done. It was, I picked up a lot of understanding and learning about Windows from it. And there was a lot more business application. There was programs called PFS Write, and you name it. There was all kinds of things. Harvard Graphics was pretty cool. A lot of interesting programs back then that were developed for the PC. So watching, I bought my own computer and had nobody. There were very few people that had computers that actually had hard drives. They were all running off floppies. And I spent, I think it was like $300 on a 20 meg hard drive. And everybody thought I was insane to buy a hard drive. Why did I need a hard drive? Everything runs off floppies, And I put that in there, and it was like a whole different world. The computer was much faster running everything. I didn't have to switch floppies out. Everything was on that hard drive that I had on floppies. So I started making graphics, and I love making graphics, and to this day still do. It's it then of course, the computer industry boomed, and they were very expensive. The computers were, goodness, they were anywhere from $2,000 to $10,000 for a home computer, and for name brand computers. It was and they were they were inching you along technology wise on speed on processors. There was like I say, the 8086 and 8080 processors were being used by Intel. That was the initial ones. The 186 was ended up being used for more like gas pumps and more automated type machinery and stuff. Then they came out with a major advancement in processor, which was the 286, and that was a biggie. It was a lot faster. Then they came out with the 386, and then they even came out with a 387 MAVCO processor, which if you were doing CAD and major accounting applications, it sped up your computer handling the calculations. Then they came out with a 486 processor, which was actually a 386 processor with a 387 coprocessor and some memory cache on it to make it faster, and introduced that as a new processor, which was fine. It's all part of marketing. Then that's the computer I bought when I started working at Dell Computers. Is I brought a 486, and most hard drives at that time were probably about 40 to 80 megs. That's about it. So when I bought my Dell computer, Dell had a really cool financing program for employees that they would do interest-free, finance you a computer, take out of your paycheck. And so I bought me a really nice one. I wanted to do graphics and videos and so forth. And I bought two 450 meg hard drives. And my fellow techs thought I was crazy. Nobody needs 900 megs of hard drive space, is what they told me. But when you're editing videos, it eats up quite a bit. So when I got the computer, shortly after I got it and set it up at home, me and my then wife went on vacation, and I asked I had a pet iguana, and I asked one of my fellow coworkers if he would watch my place and feed my pet while I'm gone, and he could play with the new computer because I had the hottest, best computer out there among everybody. So he was more than happy to play with it and learn. And when I came back from vacation, he told me that something very bizarre happened. And I said, okay. And he said, you laid out all the computer books on your couch. And so I'm going through the books, and something hits me in the head. And it didn't snap to me what it was. And I thought I was just imagining things. So I kept playing with the books, and then it hit me in the head again. And I look up, and there's this giant iguana head staring at my face. And I thought you had a little iguana that was running around, but this thing was absolutely huge. I mean, the tail on the thing was like 3 foot long. And I told him, I said, yeah, I've actually had a friend come over one time, and I didn't tell him I had that. And he saw the tail and thought it was a speaker wire. And he looked over and saw the whole body of the thing, and nearly jumped on top of me and screamed. And I laughed. I said, it's not a dragon. It's not going to kill you and carry you off. It's just an iguana. But it was very menacing looking and very huge. But but anyway, that um, but the computer ended up being very instrumental in learning a lot of things, and I ended up getting a modem and joining BBSs, and realized real quick the importance of social media, and was beginning to start my own, as I probably mentioned before, is the my own Facebook style page, because I realized that the social interaction was going to be huge. But as circumstances in life took a bad turn for me, and I ended up unemployed, and even lost my dwelling, and ended up living in my car, and needed money, and was living on a pack of day old bread once a week, and just had enough money for that, and was drinking out of a water fountain at a rest area. And that was basically my life for weeks and weeks and weeks and weeks. And I had a hard time processing thought, a collective thought, because I had been through an apartment fire that, when I came out of it and out of the hospital, I just couldn't put two pieces of thoughts together. So it was hard for me to piece things. But I had a computer. I had that computer in storage, and even though it was a 486 and Pentiums, which were the newest thing, just come out, but they were extremely expensive. The 486 still had a little bit of value to it. And I went to called up a computer buy place, told them what I had, and they said they would definitely make me an offer on it. So I managed to convince the storage place to unlock my storage locker, because I was past due, and let me have it, and so I could sell it, and then pay them off. And took the computer to the place, and they gave me $1,200 for it. And that enabled me to leave Austin and pack up my stuff and move back to Houston and start my life over again. But while I was at Dell, I learned, quite a bit of things about OS2 and Windows, a little bit of Novell. And it wasn't until I got to, as I mentioned, Dynasty, that's when the training and the computer learning really took off in a very dramatic way. I was playing with tandems, SGI boxes, a wide variety of Unix boxes, you name it, and had to support all of it and learn it very quickly. So I watched, like I said, I watched the technology world grow and become something. I watched things that people were working on that now are normal, like Wi-Fi. I knew people in Austin that were doing Wi-Fi over ham radio, sending networking their computers together through their ham radios a long time ago, before there was even an internet, long before the internet. So it's amazing how certain things that never took off or nobody really capitalized on ended up being big later. But now computers are very, very high level as far as the software is more more intuitive, more they're trying to make it a lot easier to work with. They do more things for you, and allow you to do things that are a lot more professional, a lot easier. Like even in the world of writing, the grammar and editing tools are getting much better. There's some software that's actually very, very good at editing, but nothing obviously can replace a human being, because a human understands the language and the content and context a lot better. But but it's getting better, and it's um, it's eliminating a lot of uh, human needs, unfortunately, in some respects, and it's going to continue to move in that direction. So it's going to get to a point where anybody of any skill level is going to be able to sit down and talk to, an avatar, and this avatar is going to be your sidekick, and it's going to be able to walk you through and handle what you wanted to have done. So it's going to be a different world very soon, and in a lot of respects. We're already seeing it in social media. With social media has the bots and the artificial intelligence that they use in social media platforms now, where they absolutely know more about you than you probably know of yourself. It's scary and staggering how much they really have figured out about you. Even some of the search engines and artificial intelligence apparatus of large companies can predictively, accurately know who's going to win elections, to almost a better than 95% percentile. So it's going to be amazing. It's going to be a very informative. Expected level of knowledge is going to be much greater. The only problem that I have with social media is that people view social media as fact and as news, and it's not. It's opinion. If you take it as news, you are extremely misinformed, because it is there's a lot of fake stuff out there in social media, particularly in the arena of politics. I used to fact check friends of mine's posts. Didn't matter what side they were on. That doesn't matter. And I found better than 90% of it was false, out of context, misunderstood, misconstrued, or just plain made up. Somebody said something, posted it, and then somebody shared it. That's not news, and that's not fact. You have to really check things out and go and look yourself, because information is coming at you so fast and so hard. It's unless you've had lived before certain things, it's hard to have a context, or what my generation called common sense, to understand it. It can be very confusing, and you can end up being raging against something that you don't really need to rage against, because it didn't really exist. It's just somebody's way of polling you or convincing you that there's a problem out there that you need to address. And there's certainly plenty of problems out there and things that need to be addressed, but just you just have to be careful about it, and realize that no matter how smart you are, anybody can be duped, anybody can be fooled. Emotion can override any amount of intellect, always does. So the advertising industry spends billions of dollars on driving your emotions, not your intellect. So that should tell you something. But optimistically, we're going to understand things to a greater detail. I think once we iron out the crap that's going on right now, and in social media and with people, that when we get a better understanding of what is actually happening and what is actually real, I think we're going to have a very interesting times in the next decade or so. I really do.
Hey Mike, how you doing, brother? You say Padino from the Mayans MC. Little video to congratulate you on your book, The Southern Cross, reaching #1. That's quite an accomplishment, brother. I'm very proud of you, man. I like the premise, man. So you know what? I'm gonna go look for it and give it a read. I wish you the best always with that. I see, it's being pitched for a movie, so maybe we'll be working together sometime soon. I mean, it is in the Mexican Village, right? Good luck. Wish you the best 2020. Wish you the best always. Congratulations, man.
Thank you for listening to the IMT show with Mike Sims. The views expressed by guests are their own and their appearance on the program does not imply an endorsement of them or any entity they represent. The IMT show is an opinion show and not to be taken as serious personal, legal, tax or financial advice. It is meant as entertainment only. IMT show, Mazarov for Mike Sims is not responsible for ad content. For more information on show schedules and content visit www.mazarov.net/IMT.